Welcome to Run, Build, Grow, the podcast that laces up its running shoes and dives deep into the heartbeat of the communal spirit of running. I'm your host, Andrew Ware, the Runnin' Rev, and I'm thrilled to take you on this exhilarating journey where we explore stories that go beyond the pavement. We are back with another episode. It seems like I'm on this bi-weekly schedule for a little bit as I continue to bring on new guests. I continue to try and find folks to come on. Don't worry, I will continue to be here. The podcast is not going anywhere, but this episode is one that I enjoyed. I have on Lindsey Hein, the host of I'll Have Another podcast. She also hosts a parenting podcast called Why Is Everyone Yelling? Great title for a parenting podcast. She has been in this run podcasting space for a while now, for 8-9 years, as she has been talking to runners from all facets of life, whether everyday runners like you and I, and professional elite runners, and getting their perspective on what running is like for them, what it means to them. And I knew I had to get her on this podcast to talk not just about the community that she has built on I'll Have Another, but also the community that she has built around her in everyday life. And so this was a joy to have her on. But before we get into it, I'd like to shout out my partnership with Lucky Road Run Shop. Are you ready to run strong and feel great doing it? At Lucky Road Run Shop, they specialize in making every runner, walker, and fitness enthusiast get that perfect fit. Their trained staff takes the time to analyze your gait, your stride, and match you with the right shoe, because the right fit changes everything. With top brands like Ultra, Asics, Brooks, Hoka, Mizuno, New Balance, On, Saucony, Topo, they carry the best gear to keep you moving comfortably mile after mile. Visit one of their Central Virginia locations and check them out at luckyroadrunshop.com, because every step should feel like a lucky one. Lucky Road Run Shop, where the journey begins. And now let's dive into this conversation with Lindsey Hein. All right, welcome in, everybody. Today I am joined by Lindsey Hein. Lindsey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And this is a special treat. I've been listening to Lindsey's podcast, for the better part of, I don't know, 8. I can't even remember how long I've listened to it. I've listened to it for so long. Lindsey has her own podcast, and I know we'll get to talk about that a little bit. But Lindsey, why don't we start up where we normally start? What is your community, and what makes your community awesome?
Oh, I love that. Well, are we talking about my community with my podcast, or like my life community at home?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell folks community is what we make it. And sometimes we have community in different places. So I'd love to hear just all about Lindsey's community, just everything that means.
I love that question so much. I feel like a lot of podcasters start with like, introduce yourself. And I love the question starting off with community, because I think that community is a lot of what makes me who I am. So I would put that into buckets, right? Like, for me, community is like who I'm surrounded by on a daily basis. We moved from Indianapolis to Raleigh, North Carolina 3 years ago, almost 4. And I was like really scared about that, because I was afraid I would lose community. Like I was afraid, will I be able to build the friendships that I had in Indianapolis? And so I set out like super gung-ho to meet people and make friends. And I will say, like, having people who live in close proximity to me that I can be like, let's go for a walk, or, like, come on into my house and like grab some eggs off the counter. We have chickens, so I always give neighbors eggs. Like things like that, where we can just like really be a part of each other's life, like fluidly on a day-to-day basis. It's like so important for my mental health. So I would say my community and my neighborhood is my lifeline. Like,
yeah,
it's so important to me. But then I have this like whole other space of my running community and my friends that I've made through my podcast and through being in this industry for like 9-10 years. So yeah, and then the community on I'll Have Another. I mean, I think it's a lot of people that are everyday runners who are really interested in the sport, who might be interested in running their first marathon, running their first BQ, maybe trying to qualify for the Olympic trials. There's some pro runners in that community as well. So Yeah, I'm really grateful for the community that we've created there.
And I think a lot of listeners, especially episodes that I've done before where you have people experiencing moves like you did
Yeah.
and going through that and having to come to a new community. How much did, say, the community you had formed through podcasting, through running, even that community within Indianapolis, what were some of the ways that they maybe helped as you transition from living in Indianapolis to living in North Carolina, where you live now?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I've learned, especially as I like get older and making friends as an adult can be really challenging because a lot of people like have their core group already.
Yeah.
Um, you can't be offended if you're not the like not getting invited all the time. And you have to do the inviting. I mean, when we moved here, I was inviting neighbors that I had never met before into my home, like to get to know them. And some of those neighbors have still never invited me into their home, and that's okay. But I had to like, you can't just expect friendships to happen, is I guess is what
Hmm.
I'm saying. Now sometimes things fall into place super easily. But more often than not, like you have to be the asker, you have to be the one putting yourself out there. And you asked like how my running community and community in Indianapolis helped me with that. I mean, I think the podcasting journey has is a great example of what helped me because I mean, when I started my podcast 9 years ago, there weren't really many running podcasts. And I had to really put myself out there. Like, is anybody going to want to listen to this? Like, um, I'm sending, note cards to businesses and just like emailing run clubs, like, hey, I'm Lindsey Hein. Here's my podcast. So I think starting something from the ground up and like dipping into a space that I really knew nothing about and didn't know if I had any business being there uh kind of gave me like a thicker skin too for like
Yeah.
what denial might look like as well. Like, okay, that I'm not a good match for friendship with that person or whatever. This friendship isn't going to be what I thought it was. Because the thing about starting a business and a podcast, as you know, it's like people are going to tell you no. People are going to ignore you or like
Yep.
accidentally not respond or things like that. And you have to like not take it personally. You have to just not be offended by those kinds of things. So I think that that really helped me when trying to find a community here.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many DMs I have that are just not responded to at this point in time. Um, but
Seriously.
and it is interesting that you mentioned that, because I think about in my own career as a pastor how much I have to be, you know, in connection with people, in community with people, and I have to be out there and in front of folks, and how much that kind of translates over into this space and what it looks like for us to form community.
Mhm.
I think we can often see ourselves, for those of us who are more comfortable in that space, as not even just, oh, I'm just going to insert myself into this community, but even forming community and what that looks like. And you've had a lot of opportunities to form community. I want to kind of start with the podcast, because again, that's how I got to know you. I think that's how probably a lot of people that are listening to this podcast might know you. So for you, why did you start a running podcast? So let's start there. Why did you start a running podcast?
Well, so this was in 2016, and I was like kind of gung ho into running. I had been immersed in the space for probably like 8 years at that point. Because I ran my first marathon in 2008. And I started listening to podcasts and I was like, this sounds fun. Like I could do this. Like I love having conversations with friends. So when I started my show, it was really more like, yes, I can interview runners, but like it can also be friends. I very quickly like niched down to specifically running though.
Hmm.
Um but I remember I had won this contest and I was on the cover of Women's Running magazine. And I remember one of my husband's aunts when I won that contest and I was on the cover. She was like, "So now what are you gonna do? Like what are you
Mm.
gonna do with this now?" And I was like, "What do you mean? I won the contest." Like that was it.
That was that.
That was that. I did it. I had like a running blog. It was called Out for a Run. And I don't know how long have you been in the running space?
Oh gosh. I mean, I've been running since I was in high school. and kind of in and out of it. It's kind of like you. It's like, where does it even begin, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I remember back in the day, like in probably like 2008, 2006, 2007, Runner's World had this online like forum blog space. I
Yep.
forget what it was called. Do you remember what that
I
was?
can't remember what it was called, but I remember I read it.
Yeah, and you couldn't promote your own blog there, but you could write like unique blog posts and like, be a part of this community there. And so sometimes I would write like a quick recap of a race there or something like that. And then my sister was like, "You should really start your own blog. Like you have a lot to say and you're running pretty fast and people might be interested." So I had a blog for a while that my husband actually wrote on it too, back in the day. And then we started a coaching business. So we had that going and had like a very, very small following. But like there were
Yeah.
people that were kind of paying attention a little bit. This like small group of people that I call them like the OGs of this running space when like before Instagram was even created, really. I met a lot of these friends on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's
and
run. Are we still? No, I'm kidding.
no, I never did Let's Run
Oh
though.
man, yeah, that was very. Yeah, we won't talk about it here.
I've actually never really paid attention to Let's Run at all.
Okay.
I know, right? I might be in the minority there. Um, but yeah, so I started the podcast and started pitching professional runners and really realized, oh, people really want to hear from these runners. So for a long time I mixed it with everyday runners, people that were my friends in the community, with professional runners. And I do tend to interview more like mostly just professional runners right now. But I'm like open to other stories as well and sometimes like parlay them into the podcast.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that you know a lot of people like you who are in I call it like the upper tier of these running podcasts, and it's like there's so many of us around these days, and it's not a negative, but in a lot of ways we're looking at it and we also want to relate to folks, and I think that that's one of the things that a lot of running podcasters and a lot of folks who are interviewing professional runners are doing these days is they're trying to help us see like, okay, yeah, these people, they have struggles, they have problems too. They hate 400-meter repeats just as much as everybody else. And so when you're uh, when you're podcasting, when you're interviewing folks, when you're getting guest lists together, what is that thought process that you're going through of trying to find guests that people relate to, of trying to help folks understand even more about their own journeys as well?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of at this point with I'll Have Another, a lot of the guests I pitch are like they end up being timely. So for
Yeah.
instance, like Grand Slam track is going on and I'm like, let's get some athletes who are competing in Grand Slam track or like Boston Marathon's coming up. So I'm like, okay, I just interviewed Jess McLean because I'm anticipating and hoping that she has a really good race in Boston. Even if she doesn't have a great race, like I still wanted to interview her. So a lot of that kind of runs on like a timely basis.
Hmm.
But sometimes I'll pitch a guest where I'm like, oh, this is evergreen content. Like this has nothing to do with like a race that's just happened or come up. And then I can hold on to that episode, right? So I can be like, okay, we have a busy like 4 weeks with pre and post Boston stuff, but like this is for like I don't want to say a rainy day because it's probably like a really good episode based on someone who has enough to say that they're just like a mainstay guest, right? But it can be like when there's a little bit of a downtime, I can like throw out that evergreen episode, or like if I'm gonna go on a vacation or like, try to not record for a week or something.
Yeah.
Um, I do think I tend to do better with interviews who are at similar stages of people who are at similar stages of life that I'm in. So just because I find what they're going through a little bit more relatable. That being said, though, I've had a lot of fun interviewing, like Taylor Rowe was recently on the podcast, and I've had a lot of fun interviewing some of these younger athletes who are really at the beginning stages of their career. And one of my favorite things about that is knowing that in 6 years, assuming my podcast is still a thing, I'll get
Yeah.
to interview them again and like reflect on what these last 6 years have looked like compared to like who that person was when we did that interview 6 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and oftentimes we can think of just running in general as such like a linear sport, right? There's a start line, there's a finish line. The person who gets to the finish line the quickest with the fastest time is the winner. Even for those of us in the middle of the pack, it's all about, how quickly we can get to the finish line and PRs and stuff like that. But I often think of the nonlinear nature of running, right? The idea is that I can go out and run a PR, and then the next time that I run that race, I might run 5 minutes off that PR. And trying to hold on to the experiences that transcend, say, personal bests or even medals or anything like that, not only in your podcast, but in your own running journey, what has that been like for you to reflect more on that non-linear nature of the running journey, of what it looks like for running to be like an evergreen thing that you're
Mm.
always doing, or that, maybe not you're always doing, but that's kind of a part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a totally different phase of running than I was when I started the podcast. I was like really kind of serious about it. Um and now it is just something I really love to do, but I also love to do lots of other things. And before, I don't think I had a lot of time to do the other things I enjoy doing now because I was running so much. Um, but I think what I want is for it to just always be something I can do and I'm able to do and I can enjoy doing. Um, and if I do it too much, I won't be able to do that because I know I will get injured.
Hmm.
And also, like, at this point, it's something I really wanna, like, share with my kids, and so, like, I'm never gonna say no if one of my kids is like, "Will you go run, like, a couple miles with me?" Like, I don't care what I've done for the day or, like, how many, miles I've already ran or, whatever, like, I'm out there, I'm gonna do that with them because if I can instill, like, this, like, lifelong love for something that is so good for our bodies and our minds and my
Hmm.
kids, I'm gonna do it. So, I mean, yeah, it's more than my own goals at this point. It's like I look at it more holistically now than I think I used to.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there's a lot of that for folks who maybe have been running for long periods of time. I even think about having lived where I've lived now for almost 5 years, and just the transition that's happened in that 5 years. Some of it forced because of injury, but also just some of it reflecting back on maybe the mentality that I needed to change that would give me a better love for running. How have you noticed maybe the more maybe something we're uncomfortable with, maybe that toxic side of maybe going too
Mm,
deep, where you talked about, if I run too much, I'm going to get injured. That's something we've got to learn as
yeah.
adults, especially, and something that a lot of times when I was a youth, I'm just like, all right, I'm injured, I'm still running, and we want to do that. So what's it been like for you growing, not necessarily fully beyond, but looking back and maybe recognizing some of those toxic traits that you might have held on to as a runner, and now trying to live more into a more holistic style of running, of fitness, of self-care and movement?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I am a happier person when I've gotten a workout in,
Yeah.
regardless of what that workout is. It doesn't have to be a run. It can be anything. It can be a spin class. It can be pickleball. It can be a really long hike or walk or anything. I think that there were a lot of years, and I think probably people who are in the throes of marathon training can relate to this, where I'm like just dreading, like, "Ugh, I don't want to go. I have to do this. I don't want to get. I don't want to do this. I don't want to feel like that anymore. Like, I don't want to feel
Mm.
like, oh, this is a chore I have to do. I mean, sometimes it's gonna feel like that because like we have a goal and we want to accomplish that goal and the grind is real. Um, but I don't I don't want to live like that anymore.
Mm.
I want to look forward to the movement that I'm gonna do for the day. And for me, having variety just makes me happy. Like, if I run 3 days a week, I'm gonna really look forward to those runs and the satisfaction I feel from those runs. If I run, like, 6 days a week, probably 2 of those 6 runs, I'm probably gonna be like, "Ugh, I don't wanna go do this." So if I notice I'm feeling that way, I wanna replace that with something else. So I go to spin class twice a week, like,
Yeah.
That one of the spin classes is my run for the week, like my cardio or whatever you want to call it.
And how much of a role does community play in a lot of that as well? And especially for you, someone who's got a variety of different communal
Yeah.
spaces. You know, you have your family,
Yeah.
then you have like that community that you live near. And then again, knowing you, not only do you have the podcast community, but you also have this whole like online community that interacts with one another and in a lot of different ways. And so what has community been like for you in the midst of, you know, your own personal journey while also kind of balancing a lot of these things?
I mean, I want to do these things with friends. Like I do like to go for a run by myself and like knock that out and get back home and like, get my work done and be super efficient with my time
Yeah.
sometimes. But I'm also like, if a friend wants to hang out and part of that hanging out is getting a workout in, whether that's like a casual pickleball game or something, just like I shouldn't even call it a workout, just like a move your body. If I can
Mm-hmm.
get community time paired with movement time, it's not like I'm like I need to be multitasking all the time, but it makes it so much better. And I'll give you an example. I This morning I was like, I really want to do a track workout. Like
Mm.
I'm so annoyed with the hills in Raleigh. I I truly think they have sucked the joy out of running for me quite a bit.
Ugh.
No run is easy because it's always hilly. Even if I'm going like 10-minute miles, like the hills are still hard. They're always hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove myself to this track that I only knew about because on spring break I took my kids to this like city park and they have an indoor pool that's really cool with a slide. And I was like, wow, there's a track here too.
Oh, cool.
It's 20 minutes from my house, so that's like out of my simple little bubble normally. But I was like, I'm just gonna drive over to that track and do like 5 by 800, just like
Mm-hmm.
something to move my legs fast and off the hills. And I pulled up, and there's these two women that work out at my gym who I
Mm.
lift weights with. Like they are more strength training people than runners. One of them runs quite a bit, but the other one doesn't at all. And I was like, "What are you guys doing here? I've never been to this track." And they're like, "We've never been here either, but we're going to do a speed workout." And so I just hopped in and did their workout with them. I mean, talk about a couldn't be a more type B runner. Like I was like, "What are you guys doing? Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's do that." But my point is that I don't think that experience would have been anywhere near as satisfying if they hadn't been there. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
still buzzing around about it. I'm buzzing around because I've got endorphins from the workout, but I'm also buzzing around because I got to do that with friends. We didn't run together, like we were at the same pace, but I knew when I would see them around the track, they were working hard with me, and
Yeah.
something about that camaraderie felt really good. So, yeah, it's just super super important, and I can't say enough. Like, don't wait for people to come to you. Don't wait for people to come to you. You have to do the inviting sometimes. A lot of times,
Yeah.
put yourself out there, show up. And I said to the women, I was like, I hope I didn't annoy you, but if you're doing this next week, like, can I come? you know, I don't know if they were going to invite me, but I was like, I'm going to invite myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think back to when, you know, back close towards like I think it was like 2021 when I started my run club and just saying getting to the point where it's like, you know, if I go to these other run clubs, they're like 30, 40 minutes away. I have
Yeah.
to go over a bridge, through a tunnel. You know, you've got hills, we've got tunnels. If you want flat land, come back to Hampton Roads. We will welcome you with open arms. Um, and just saying like, all right, if we're gonna have community, then I'm gonna have to be the one to start it, or someone's gonna have
Yeah.
to start it, and I'm just gonna kind of send the fresh message. Um, and
It's
so
far to
being
drive
able to
that you were doing that.
it It can be, it like distance wise, it wasn't far, but sometimes you sit in
Traffic
traffic and
and
things like that. And so I always say, like, I enjoy going to a lot of those run clubs because I get that feeling, right? You get that feeling where, hey, I get to run with people and maybe I don't run with that often. But there was also something about maybe trying to find community where I was because it wasn't
yes.
happening, right? We had this
Yeah.
small little pocket here in Hampton Roads that just didn't have run clubs, which was super weird for me. And so I was like, all right, well, let's start one. Let's do this. You know, what would you tell folks who may be trying to find those communities? Is there maybe something that you could tell them to get out there, do it? I mean, it's got to be more than that, right? Because you're trying to convince people. Sometimes they might be introverted and scared to see people, so
Totally.
might not work out as much. But like, what are
Yeah.
you
I
telling
get
folks to
that.
help encourage them to say, even if you don't create community, what can you do to find community?
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that too. Like, my husband is not the type of person that's going to show up somewhere where
No.
he doesn't know anybody. Like,
Yeah.
that is like his worst nightmare, to have to make small talk with like a bunch of people he doesn't know. I would say, if that's not you,
Yeah.
like, if it doesn't give you the heebie-jeebies to show up and like put yourself out there, uh show up somewhere even if you feel like you aren't like the typical demographic, or like the person that would typically show up to that club. Like, there's a club here in Raleigh near me. I was actually thinking about starting like a group run because I wanted something that was selfishly convenient for me,
Yeah.
because time, like, you just only have so many hours in the day.
Oh yeah.
And um I was like, I don't want to have to drive. And also, a lot of run clubs are at like 6 p.m. Well, I have four kids in sports, and
Yeah.
like 6 p.m. on a
Sorry,
weeknight
we
is,
buried the lead, folks.
oh yeah, yeah.
Lindsay's got a busy life.
Yeah, I mean, we keep their sports fairly minimal. I mean, for
Yeah.
having like four kids, all elementary and middle school age, like, I think people would be surprised at how little amount of running around we actually do with them, and that's very intentional. But it's still, there's four of them. I mean, it's going to be full.
Yeah.
So six, like those kind of evening weekday runs are like really hard to swing. So I was looking up run clubs. This is where I'm going. I was looking up run clubs in my area because I was like, well, if I'm going to start one, like, I want to make sure there's not like one that's a perfect fit for me, right?
Yeah.
Already happening. And there is one, but again, they meet at like 8:30 on Saturday mornings. Also kind of a hard time for sports people with kids. Um, but I was looking at all the pictures, and like, this is like a young run club. This
Hmm.
is like, these people are in their 20s for sure. I mean, I'm sure there's some in their 30s too. I would hands down be the oldest, if not one of the oldest people there. However, I would still show up. Like, I would still go to that if the time worked out for me. And I think it would probably be really fun. And I could actually learn a lot from these younger, there are probably a lot of young professionals, and they could in turn learn a lot from me. Like, the experience, the life experience I have, the running experience I have. And another way to look at that is the pickleball thing that I mentioned I play. Like, we go play at this park down the street from our house. My 12-year-old son goes too, and he plays with like 80-year-old men, 60-year
Hmm.
old women, like people of all ages, like totally intergenerational. And that could be like intimidating, right? Like,
Yeah.
to be in, and so he's learning. He's like the only 12-year-old down there. A couple of his buddies now go with him too, but like, that could be super intimidating. Like, he could say, I don't belong here because I'm a 12-year-old kid, and like, these are all like people my grandparents' age, and you
Yeah.
know, but I think there's something to be said for showing up in a space that isn't around people that are all this in the same walk of life as you, but it can feel uncomfortable. But you just have to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I even wonder because I look at the diversity of the club that I'm a part of the club and the group that I'm a part of that gets together, and you know for the most part, we don't all look the same, right? We're a lot of us are in different stages of life. A lot of us are in different stages in running. We have like folks who are running, BQs, while we also have folks who just enjoy the leisurely party pace. And even just being a part of a broader community here in Hampton Roads that is so diverse in how people engage with running, as you're experiencing community where you live, as you're embodying community on your podcast, what does it look like for you to take note of that diversity? You talk about, your 12-year-old son playing with the 80-year-olds in pickleball. And I mean, diversity goes far beyond age, but what is community and diversity meant for you, especially as someone who is influential in the running space? You're someone who's interviewing professional athletes. You're also someone who's interviewing everyday runners. You're someone who is running every day. What does it mean for you to not only embody but create that sense of diversity within this running space?
That's really hard because I feel like when you hear diversity, you think of like race, right?
Yeah.
And running is such
A white.
yeah, I mean, I would be lying to say like it's not a very like white space, but we have seen these run clubs popping
Mm-hmm.
up all over major cities, and it's changing. I have tried throughout my podcast since 2016 to make sure that I'm bringing on diversity in my
Yeah.
guests. But it's still, if you look at the guest list, it's probably 80% at
Oh,
least
yeah.
white people.
Oh, no,
Uh,
it's tough. It is really tough to like create a diverse guest list and keeping that in mind. Like, that's one of the hardest things I think I've had with podcasting.
yeah, but it's really important
It
too. It's
is.
really important. I would also say that, like, people always say like surround yourself with people that don't look just like you. We can really get into bubbles though, right?
Mm.
Like where we live, our neighborhoods we live in, things like that. So yeah, it's a challenge for sure. And it's also about like being willing to be a little bit uncomfortable, like not just surrounding yourself with people who have the same life experiences as you, and also entering those relationships with like, tell me where you're coming from. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to tell you what I think I know. I want to hear what your experience is.
And it's such an important space that we occupy, because even just being a runner in the running community, I say that as just like that's the only thing you occupy. And obviously we don't, because we're so much more than runners, right? Running is just a part of our identity and how we come together. And yet I think when we talk about community, it's, what's that intentionality that's behind how we're gathering together? Are we aware and cognizant
Mhm.
of what we're bringing into spaces? And when I think about this communal spirit of running, which is kind of what I built as the backbone behind this podcast, it's kind of that recurring theme that keeps on coming up is I want the community that I'm creating to be something that anybody can feel comfortable being a part of.
Yeah, that
And
they
yet I
belong.
know that that's never going to be the case, because the presence of some people is going to be off-putting. And so when you're doing all of these things, right, you're trying to do the best job that you can. You're trying to be the most intentional that you can. We do all of these different things to try and make community what it deserves to be. For you, what are maybe steps? I mean, I'd even love to hear, like, how do you engage your sons in a lot of this work as well? Because, I think about even my two kids and the work that we do in terms of helping them to understand a lot of this stuff. We can be the catalyst for change just by offering the space. And so what kind of things are you doing in that area?
As far as like teaching my kids to be in circles that
Or even just, I mean, even just in general, I kind of use kids because it's oftentimes, they're right there, and it's a little easy. But even just so, like, I'm thinking with the platform that you have, or even
mm,
with the community that you've created, there's an opportunity for folks to understand and see. And so, what are you doing in that space?
yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest lesson we can give to our kids in that regard is to be an includer. And that's what I always say to my kids. I'm like, be an includer, be an includer. And I will give you an example that I was like tearing up about yesterday because like how old are your kids?
9 and 6.
Okay. So we're right around the same. Mine are
Yeah.
6, 8, 10, 12. Um, and parenting is really challenging. I mean, there's like I have this issue with worrying about people judging me, like how I'm parenting, that I'm not doing a very good job, or that I don't have control over my kids, or I can't believe her kids act that way, that kind of thing. Like I'm raising 4 boys, and we are very loud, very obnoxious, very physical. And a lot of times, especially like if I'm by myself with them, like I just took them to the beach for 3 days without my husband, and they were all fighting in the pool, and I'm like, I, like, literally can't control this situation. Nobody's
Mm.
listening to me. There's 4 of them, there's 1 of me, and I felt this, like, intense judgment of the other parents in the pool. There was, like, 2 sets of parents, and they each had 2 kids, and they were younger, so I'm like, "Okay, they don't understand my life. Stop worrying about their judgment." And then there was this, like, older grandpa with his grandkid, and I'm, like, thinking, that grandpa's probably thinking, "In my generation, kids never would have gotten away." You know what I mean? I'm just, like, so overwhelmed with worried about what people were perceiving, like how I parented. So I really struggle with that. Um, and I struggle when like my kids make choices that are not great choices, and like, what have I done wrong that happened? And I've, learned along this way, like you can do everything perfectly. You won't, by the way,
Hmm. Yeah.
but you can think you are. And like your kids are their own individual human beings, and they are going to make their own decisions. Um, and the example I wanted to give is that yesterday our kids had run club, and one of my friends, her son, is in a wheelchair, and he comes to run club, and I got to run club late. And I guess all that she told me this, I had no idea this happened. And I don't even know if my son would have told me this. All the kids came running down the stairs. And she said because she volunteers as well, she said her son was like left at the top of the stairs, and he like
Mm.
wheeled back to her, and he was like, "Mom, they all went that way. Like, I don't know what to do." And she said that my 10-year-old noticed and went back up and said, "Oh, I was going to go down the ramp anyway." And like went down the ramp with him.
Mm.
And it's a small thing, but it's to me, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, of all the failures I feel like I've had with parenting, and all the things that like they've done that I've not felt proud of, or that I felt like discouraged by, like I can't believe they made that decision." There it was. It was like he remembered I'm like tearing up talking about it. He
Yeah.
remembered to be an includer. So all the bad words that they say, all the like things where I'm like, I can't believe he just did that to his brother, who he won't say he loves, but I know he does. Um, he made that kid feel loved. And yeah, so I think teaching our kids to be an includer is like my number one priority. And they're not always going to do it. They're just not. I mean, kids can just, we all made bad choices when we were
Yeah.
kids at some point. So yeah, I think in terms of like any type of diversity, like racial diversity, physical diversity, um, financial diversity, like always be the includer.
And I mean, it kind of circles to the understanding of what makes community is the people gathering together. And to me, community is always stronger when it not only reflects the people who are like right around you, but it also is it embodies the nature of like all of creation and what's all around us. And because I phrase it that way, just knowing that your mom. I mean, you mentioned earlier, like you have on guests that are like pertinent to you. So I mean,
Yeah.
like I have kids, you have kids. It's like I learn a lot about you about how to right, and so. But when we're thinking about, it's like, man, if I can teach my kids to be includers, then what does that also maybe say about me as a person in the community, a run club leader, an ambassador for whatever running brands I'm an ambassador for, even for people who may sponsor either the podcast or my running or whatever it is, how those kinds of things then translate over. What am I doing in that space, and how am I being someone who ensures that everybody's voices are being heard, who's building community? And that's one of the things that intrigues me most about this whole space. And, again, one of the reasons to start the podcast is really exploring, like, can a community of runners do amazing things, not just for the running community, but like for the world? And it's been cool to like interview folks who are doing awesome things in their communities to kind of help rebuild. And, starting from that point of, what does it mean for us to care for this space? And as you're kind of looking at, the future, as you're kind of looking ahead, the quintessential sort of, we're about to wrap up the podcast kind of thing. But whether it's the podcast, whether it's, your boys, whether it's, running community in Raleigh, whatever it is, what are your hopes? Like, what do you want to see accomplished through the work that you're doing in the running space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I don't ever want to get caught up with the keeping up of it all,
Mm.
and instead hope that like what I'm doing, um I hope that like through the interviews and the conversations I have and the way that I interact with people in a very like authentic way when I meet them in person, I hope that makes them feel seen. I hope that when they listen, like I just recorded a podcast with my friend John, and like some of the things we talked about, like I hope that people listening are like, I totally relate to that. I
Mm.
feel a lot less alone because I heard them talking about that. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. And then like long term with my kids and all that, like I just really hope that like they see through my husband and me that like we are living a life of an active lifestyle. And that's going to make us feel better. It's going to make us want to do, I mean, anybody listening knows, I think, that when you go for a run, at least I am my most like generous, creative self. Like I am in a run and I'm like, now do I act on half the things I dream up on my run?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but if I act on a fourth of them and they're really good ideas or really generous to like someone in my community that I maybe wouldn't have thought to do if I hadn't gone on that run. So yeah, I hope that they can see that like I'm a better person because I do this and you can be too. And it doesn't have to be running. Running just
Yeah.
happens to have found me and has been important in my life, but that can be any sort of physical activity. I mean, we were created to move. Like that
Yep.
is who we are. And it's just so obvious. The science shows it, like you just you produce a higher quality life when you move your body on a regular basis.
And connecting it to physical activity, again, running's the way that, you and I and a lot of other folks who are probably listening to this podcast understand it. But it's also how it's lived in our experience as well, right? We're a better person when we care for ourselves and when we take that sort of time to offer that. And it's that relationship that allows us to build, that allows us to grow. And it's even the thing that connects us to one another. It's the old joke, like, you can't walk into a room without talking about the marathon that you've run, right? And staunch advocate of no more marathons. I've run my marathon and I will still talk about it. I ran my marathon It has been 15 years, and I will still talk about that marathon.
Yeah, you got to talk about it. It's a big
Much
deal.
as anybody wants to talk about it. Not any of the half marathons that I've run in the last 15 years, just that marathon.
That one marathon. Yeah. I did the 26.
Yeah, I did it. And now I'm done, and I never want to do it again.
Oh my gosh. Really? That's surprising to me.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it before. It's just, who knows? I might do it again, but I probably won't. I don't have a desire right now. That's what I tell folks.
You'll get roped into it.
I enjoy, and that's the great thing about community is, when I started when I started running again, which I had been running the whole time, but when I got serious about it again in like 2019, I had a coach that was like, because I was just like, oh, I'm never going to run more than a 10K ever again. And then he's like, no, dude, you're like in shape for a half marathon. You should go do it. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll go do a half marathon. That sounds fun. And then everybody's like, oh, now you're going to run a marathon. I'm like, I don't know. And now everybody's like, Andrew, you're going to run a marathon. I'm like, nope, I'm good. The more I see that Boston qualifying time come down, it's kind of like, I kind of just want to have fun now. I mean, I'm never going to qualify for Boston. So
it's just like, honestly, too, I don't understand. Like, my friend Jess runs a marathon every season, every fall, every spring. And I'm like, I could not live that grind. Like, it does not sound appealing to me. It's not that I'm not grinding. Like, I'm working out like 6-7 days a week usually, but I have no desire to do that. And it's just so much more manageable to make your premier distance the half marathon. The problem is that our sport really glamorizes the marathon. Yeah. And so you feel like less than because you're not doing marathons. Actually, after I dropped my youngest off at school today, I ran him to school and he rode his bike. And the lady working the crossing guard, she was like, do you have any marathons coming up? Because I had done like a talk at school one time about my job and stuff. And I immediately was like, no, actually I don't. I haven't run a marathon in 2.5 years, actually. And I didn't feel any sort of way about it, but I do think even that example shows you that if people think you're a runner, the marathon is what's really glamorized.
Yeah. I often consider it like the weight that we put on something like that. I've had a couple of folks who have come to Run Club, they don't outwardly say it, but it's often like maybe you feel like less of a runner because you haven't done one. Yeah. And I remind them, it's so funny because I have a lot of friends who run marathons and, they talk about they're like, oh, it's just a measly PR of like 4:30. And I always joke with them. I said, hey, y'all know what my half marathon PR is, right? And I'm like, it's like 1:33. I said, do you want to know what my marathon PR is? And they're like, well, you've only run one. I'm like, exactly. And it was 4:58. So just know that you are better than me at the marathon. Yeah. And I do kind of see that where, one of the exclusions in community, it does become like, what are the barriers that we often put in place? And again, it's one of those things where I give thanks to like well-grounded, like folks in the running community, even professionals who are like, like I think about like Kira D'Amato, just because, I lived in Richmond for a long time. And like all of our stuff kind of coincided, but it's just kind of like seeing her journey. And she called herself like a hobby jogger. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Like, and even her willingness to just say, I don't need to go out and run a marathon to like meet the standards of who you think I need to be. I can go out and crush an up dog 10 miler and have fun. And I think the more that we, normalize that, the marathon kind of becomes a white whale in a way. And like, I'm listening and interviewing a lot of these people, and we'll get to it in a minute, but like, what's your favorite race distance? I honestly hear a lot of folks who love the 10 miler and love the half marathon. And, hopefully it's kind of one of those things where as we continue to build this community, this 2020 running boom that we're still in the midst of, and we see more folks who are just like, no, this is what I want to do. This is how things are going. And there's a willingness to push yourself. Those are the kinds of things that I love to see in our communities. And then they still rag me that, nope, one day you're going to run a marathon. I'm like, oh, we'll see. Yeah. 26 miles, even at 3 hours, which would be my BQ right now. I'm like, that's a long time. And well, and even so, like, I haven't even run a half marathon in an hour and a half yet. And to imagine doing that twice.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's so crazy. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't know that I ever want to try to PR again. I just know the work that went into doing
Yeah.
it when I did, and I don't know that I care to do that again.
And especially, you having kids, like
Yeah.
sometimes it is the time we can spend. And I have to plan my long runs because I work on Sundays. And so there goes a day for a good long run. And now my kids play soccer on Saturdays. And so, all right, when am I doing, a 20 mile or a 3.5 hour run? And it really is the time commitment. And it's not even like, what am I willing to give to running? But even more so, like, how do I not allow running to like take over the other things that offer joy in my life? And I think about one of the things we really ground our run club in is like, no, like we love to run, but we also love to just hang out. And so it can be like pouring like thunderstorm rain. And someone will send me a message. They're like, oh, are you going to the brewery for run club? And I'm like, dude, I'm already here.
Oh yeah.
I'm already here. I'm like, if you want to go for a run, go for a run.
I'm gonna hang out. Yeah.
I'm hanging out. I'm here. And so making community beyond the run and what that looks like and how we can build that. And so it's not just like, I'm not out doing running just to like do running.
Right.
And maybe it was like Matt Chittum or one of y'all other folks, but I get to run. Right.
Yeah.
I get to run. It's something I get to do. It's not something I have to do. And that's kind of the personality that I think that, when we bring that makes our community stronger.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, if it's just about you and your goals and what you're doing on your own, that good luck finding joy in that for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
Like you just like there's only so much joy you can get out of like going after a goal by yourself or like putting the hard work in all alone and not sharing those those satisfactions with people around you.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into these end of podcast questions. Lindsey, let's learn a little bit. I mean, we've heard a little bit, so let's learn a little bit more. So, Lindsey, speed run or long run?
I think it depends on what the speed is. Like I don't like a tempo run.
Okay. All right.
I'll go long, easy run.
Okay. Morning or evening?
For running?
Yeah.
Oh, people are going to hate me because I like to run at like 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Well, that, I wish I could run at 9:30 a.m.
I know. I have a really flexible schedule. I work for myself and now all 4 of my kids are in school. So it wasn't always, I mean, I have run at that time for a long time, but I used to have to like get to the gym and use the gym childcare at that time. But I'm spoiled, I don't like getting up super early and running. So I ran today at like 9:45 and that's my most perfect time to run. It's like the pros, except for I'm not a pro.
Yeah. Still a morning run though.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. I don't hate like an evening little jog though.
If it's not like completely and totally muggy outside.
Yeah, and it can't be like a real serious run. It's got to be like 3-4 miles.
Yeah. All right. Now here's one that might have changed from your moving to Raleigh, North Carolina. So summer or winter running?
Oh yeah. I would say winter in Raleigh. Yeah, I would say winter in Raleigh for sure. It's so hot in here in the summer. Yeah.
It's funny. I was gonna say I'll interview people I've interviewed like some folks from like Colorado and Michigan, and they're like, "Oh, I love summer running. It's so great." And then I'll interview people from like here on the East Coast, and they're like, could I have winter year round, please?"
Yeah. I'll take a treadmill in the summer, please.
Yeah. What do you listen to while running?
Rap music.
Okay. What's your favorite distance to race?
I've never done a 10 miler, but I think it would be that, honestly. I'm like, that you race it like a half marathon, but you're going to be done 3 miles sooner.
Yeah.
Previous Lindsey would say the marathon. I've always been really scared of the half marathon because of how fast you have to run for 13 miles. And I feel like you're like pretty much uncomfortable for 10 of those 13 miles. So if you're really racing hard, So I'll go marathon, like, as a long-term answer.
All right. And lastly, Lindsey, can you give our listeners a reason to join their local run club or group?
To find their people, to find their community, and to share the experience of something they love very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, what a great conversation with Lindsey. We explored so many great things, so many ways running connects us, not just to ourselves, but to people all around, to communities all around us. We heard in Lindsey's story from starting a podcast, courage in new places. We're reminded that community is something we can build intentionally. We can include everybody. We can put a whole lot of heart into it. And it helps us to know and understand, see all of this from a different perspective that helps to grow the sport, that helps to make this sport all it can be. But even more than that, to just help make us better human beings in general. It's not just about health. It's not trying to find a certain number. It's just about being whole together. And I think Lindsey is one of the great examples I see in the running community that helps to put that at the forefront. So I want to thank you so much again for joining for this conversation, for this episode of Run, Build, Grow. I'm always looking for more guests. Like I said, feel free to email me, andrew@runandrev.com. Don't forget, you can connect with me on Instagram and Blue Sky. You'll see all that stuff in the show notes, as well as my Substack. I'm starting to do a lot more writing, a lot more putting stuff up there, including this Lenten devotional series. We are in the final week of Lent as we get closer to Easter. And so I've been doing this devotional series throughout what we call the season of Lent. It's basically just the 40 days before Easter. Head on over there, check that out, and help to support me over there. Subscribe to my Substack, and even if you can find it within yourself, help to support me by becoming a paid member over on Substack, or by helping me over on buymeacoffee.com/runandrev. All those donations, they help to keep the lights on. They let me know that you are enjoying what you are hearing. They go that extra mile to help me continue what I'm doing here. Don't forget also, drop a rating and review. If you're on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment. If you're on Spotify, let me know what you're enjoying about this episode. Let me know what you love about the podcast in general. As always, thanks for being here and for being a part of this journey. Until next time, go crush it out there. And as always, make every mile count.